The highway cameras all turned to follow my car as I passed. I noticed it by accident, which made it worse. The road had flattened into a long, empty stretch, 6 lanes reduced to 2 by construction barriers, their reflective stripes flashing dully as I passed. The hum of my tires settled into a steady, hypnotic pitch, the kind that blurs thought and stretches minutes thin. Overhead, the sodium lights flickered irregularly, some dead, some buzzing faintly, leaving pockets of darkness between islands of orange glow. I was alone out there. No headlights ahead, no taillights behind. Just the road, the night, and the quiet pressure of distance. The first camera sat on a metal arm over the right shoulder, its black dome glossy with rain. I glanced at it without thinking, the way you do when something catches light. As my car passed beneath, the dome rotated. Smoothly, precisely. It didn't twitch or drift. It turned with purpose. The mechanical were faint but audible through the closed windows. A thin sound that cut cleanly through the road noise. I checked my mirrors instinctively, half expecting to see another vehicle triggering motion sensors. There was nothing. I slowed slightly, heart ticking faster than the engine. The camera stopped turning once my rear bumper cleared it, freezing in place, lens pointed straight down the road behind me. I told myself it was coincidence. Automated tracking, speed detection. I'd worked enough late shifts to know infrastructure behaved oddly when it wasn't being watched. Machines misfired. Calibration drifted. Nothing sinister about that. 2 miles later, another camera. This one was mounted lower, closer to the lanes, its casing scarred and dull. Rain streaked across my windshield, blurring the edges of the world into soft halos. As I approached, the hum of the tires deepened, the pitch changing with the wet asphalt. The dome rotated before I reached it, not to anticipate traffic flow, not to scan the lanes. It turned early, slow, deliberate, until it was already facing me when I passed beneath. The lens caught my headlights and reflected them back, twin pale discs staring from inside the glass. The whir lasted longer this time, following me, keeping pace. I didn't look away, couldn't. The sensation was immediate and visceral. The same tightness you feel when someone locks eyes with you in a crowded room and refuses to blink. When the sound finally stopped, the silence it left behind felt heavier than the rain. I checked the dashboard clock. It blinked 1:13, the colon pulsing unevenly. The radio crackled softly, then went quiet again. No stations, just static that rose and fell like breathing. The highway dipped into a low valley where fog collected in thick bands, rolling across the lanes in pale sheets. My headlights cut narrow tunnels through it, the world beyond reduced to suggestion. The road markings stretched and warped, white lines bending under the distortion of moisture and speed. Another camera loomed ahead, then another beyond it. They moved in sequence. One turned as I approached, then the next, each rotation timed just slightly differently, like a staggered response passing down a line. The sound layered over itself, soft mechanical murmurs overlapping into something almost rhythmic. I realized then that they weren't tracking the car. They were tracking me. The thought came unbidden, sharp and unwelcome, and once it lodged itself in my mind, it refused to leave. I felt suddenly visible in a way headlights alone couldn't explain, as if the glass, the metal, the darkness itself had thinned. I adjusted my speed again, slowing more than necessary. The cameras adjusted with me, compensating instantly, their movements smoother now, more confident. The fog thickened. Overhead lights flickered and went dark one by one, leaving long stretches unlit. In those gaps, the camera's housings vanished completely, but I could still hear them. They were carried through the night air, precise and patient. A mile marker slid past on the right, 13. The number lingered in my thoughts longer than it should have. I tried to shake it off, focused on the road, on the tactile details that grounded me. The vibration through the steering wheel, the faint rattle of something loose in the trunk, the smell of damp upholstery. The mirrors began to bother me, not because I saw something there, but because I didn't. The road behind remained empty, yet the sensation of being followed intensified, a pressure between my shoulders. Every time I glanced up, I half expected to catch a reflection that didn't belong to me. Another pair of eyes, another angle. Instead, I saw the cameras. Their lenses glinted faintly in the distance, catching stray light, all of them angled the same way now, a line down the highway like a corridor of attention. The radio clicked on without warning. For a moment, I thought it had found a station. A low tone filled the cabin. Not quite sound, not quite silence. Then a voice cut through. Filtered, flattened, stripped of warmth. "Vehicle confirmed," it said. The words were calm, almost bureaucratic. I slammed the radio off. The dashboard lights flickered in response, dimming, then returning. My reflection in the windshield looked wrong in the brief darkness. My face overlaid on the road, features stretched thin by glass and speed. The next camera didn't rotate. It was already facing me. As I passed beneath it, the dome split open slightly, panels separating with a soft click. Inside, the lens adjusted, iris contracting, then widening, as if focusing on something closer than the road. My name appeared on the navigation screen. No address, no route, just the name, rendered in the same neutral font as everything else. I felt cold then, deeply and suddenly, as if the night had found a way inside the car. The fog ahead thinned, revealing an exit ramp I didn't recognize. No signage, no lights, just a darker path branching away from the highway. The cameras began to turn together, not tracking, pointing, all of them angled toward the ramp, their lenses settling there with quiet finality. The whirring stopped at once, replaced by a silence so complete it rang. The navigation system recalculated on its own. Recommended route updated. I kept driving straight. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The road continued on, empty and wet, stretching into darkness. Then, one by one, the overhead lights behind me went out, plunging the highway into shadow. Ahead, the cameras remained lit. All of them had turned back toward me. The radio clicked on again. This time, the voice sounded closer. "Please comply," it said, as the fog rolled in thick enough to erase the road entirely. A semi-truck ahead jackknifed, but when I blinked, it was gone. The moment froze itself into my vision. The trailer swinging sideways, the cab yawing hard, tires screaming on wet asphalt. Headlights flared and fractured in the rain, reflections tearing themselves across the road like broken glass. Instinct slammed my foot toward the brake, heart spiking, breath locking in my chest. I blinked. The road ahead was empty. No wreck, no truck, no sliding trailer blocking both lanes. Just fog and wet pavement unspooling beneath my headlights as if nothing had ever happened. The hum of my tires settled back into its steady, untroubled rhythm, and the dashboard glow returned to its muted green calm, needles holding their places as if the car itself hadn't noticed anything at all. I eased off the brakes slowly, every muscle tight, waiting for the delayed impact that never came. Rain whispered against the windshield. The wipers dragged water aside in uneven arcs, smearing the world into streaks of white and gray. The smell of damp upholstery and warm electronics filled the cabin. The highway stretched ahead in a shallow curve, bordered by concrete barriers striped with fading reflective paint. Construction cones appeared and disappeared in the fog, their orange caps glowing briefly before sinking back into the dark. Overhead lights flickered intermittently, some dead, others buzzing faintly, leaving irregular pockets of shadow that made distance unreliable. I checked the rearview mirror. Nothing behind me, no headlights, no brake lights, no evidence of a truck that should have been impossible to miss. The road looked untouched. No skid marks, no debris, no lingering haze of rubber smoke. The rain should have smeared something, disturbed something. It hadn't. My pulse refused to slow. I replayed the image in my head, testing it for cracks. The angle of the trailer, the way the cab twisted, the sound metal protesting, tires losing purchase. It had been too specific to be imagined, too complete. I hadn't been tired enough to hallucinate. I hadn't been drinking. I hadn't even been lost in thought. I'd been counting mile markers, watching the fog thicken and thin like breath. The radio clicked softly, a burst of static that faded as quickly as it came. The clock on the dashboard read 2:14. The colon blinked out of sync with the rest of the display, a minor malfunction I'd been meaning to look into. I stared at it longer than necessary, grounding myself in the certainty of numbers. The road dipped, then rose again. The fog pooled low in the valley, swallowing the lanes until the white lines vanished beneath a dull sheen of water. My headlights carved narrow tunnels through it, the beam ending abruptly as if the night itself were solid. Another set of construction barriers loomed out of the haze, channeling traffic into a single lane. Yellow warning lights blinked slowly, their reflections stretching and bending across the asphalt. One light flickered irregularly, dimming every third pulse, like a failing heartbeat. As I passed it, my side mirror caught a reflection that didn't belong. For a fraction of a second, the mirror showed the silver flank of a trailer sliding sideways, its surface rippling with rain. The image warped with the curve of the glass, but the movement was unmistakable. I snapped my head around. Nothing. The mirror now reflected only darkness and fog, the empty lane behind me disappearing into gray. My breath came shallow and quick. I forced it to slow, counting each exhale, listening to the steady mechanical reassurance of the engine. "Get a grip," I muttered, the sound small inside the car. The highway straightened. Mile markers ticked past, their numbers ghosting in and out of view. 13, 14. I frowned at that, a faint unease stirring, but pushed it aside. Numbers were just numbers. The wipers stuttered once, then resumed their rhythm. The dashboard lights dimmed briefly, then brightened again, as if someone had adjusted a knob I hadn't touched. My reflection wavered in the windshield, eyes wide, face pale, overlaid on the road ahead. For an instant, the reflection seemed delayed, my blink lagging behind the movement of my eyes. I blinked again deliberately. The semi-truck was back. It filled the lane ahead, impossibly close, its trailer already folding, metal screaming as it jackknifed it across the road. Water sprayed from the tires in a blinding arc, red lights flared, reflecting violently off the wet asphalt. The scene was identical to before, down to the angle of the trailer and the way the fog caught the light. My foot slammed the brake this time. The car shuddered, anti-lock brakes chattering beneath me. My chest tightened as impact felt inevitable, unavoidable. And then the truck was gone. The car rolled smoothly forward, brakes biting air, the road empty and unbroken. No sound of collision, no debris, no aftermath. Just rain and fog and the indifferent stretch of highway continuing on as if it had never been interrupted. I pulled onto the shoulder without fully deciding to. The gravel crunched loudly beneath my tires, the sound jarring after so much muffled quiet. I sat there, hands clenched around the steering wheel, listening to my own breathing and the ticking of the engine cooling slightly. The fog pressed close, flattening the world beyond the guardrail into nothing. The yellow construction lights blinked somewhere ahead, their rhythm slow and patient. I half expected to hear sirens, shouts, the chaos of a rail accident arriving late. Nothing came. The radio turned on by itself. At first it was just static, low and even. Then, beneath it, a sound like a distant engine idling. A deep, steady rumble that vibrated faintly through the speakers. It wasn't tuned to any station I recognized. The display showed only dashes. I reached to turn it off. The rumble deepened, resolving into the unmistakable cadence of a diesel engine under strain. Tires screamed faintly, far away, as if heard through walls. The sound rose and fell, looping, repeating the same doomed moment. "Stop," I said, more to myself than anything. The radio cut out instantly. In the silence that followed, I noticed something else. The highway lights ahead were all angled slightly inward, their housings turned toward the road as if watching. The fog between them seemed thicker, shaped, channeling my view down the lane I'd just left. I pulled back onto the road. As I drove, I became aware of a subtle pattern. Every time I blinked, The reflections on the road shifted just a fraction too late. The white lines lagged. The lights smeared, then snapped back into place. It was as if the world needed that brief darkness to rearrange itself. I kept my eyes open until they burned. Far ahead, through the fog, I saw taillights. Red, steady, large and rectangular. A semi-truck rolled along in the same lane, perfectly centered, its trailer gleaming wetly under the lights. It moved at a constant speed, untroubled by rain or construction or isolation. Relief flooded me so hard it left me dizzy. A real vehicle, proof that the road was still the road. I followed at a safe distance, watching the tires, the spray, the reassuring solidity of it all. The truck didn't waver, didn't drift, didn't slow. Then, without braking, without warning, its trailer began to swing. I didn't blink this time. The angle was wrong. The motion too smooth, like a demonstration rather than a loss of control. The truck's taillights didn't flare. No brake lights. No struggle. The trailer folded across the lane, blocking it entirely, and kept going. It slid sideways through the guardrail as if the metal weren't there, dissolving into the fog beyond. The cab followed, stretching, distorting, then thinning until it was nothing more than red smears in the mist. The road ahead was empty again. On my dashboard, the clock changed. 2:14. The colon blinked. I stared at the number as the fog thickened, and somewhere ahead, just beyond where my headlights could reach, I heard the low, patient rumble of an engine idling, waiting for me to blink.